how important is smell in the metaverse. I personally experienced smell in VR. There are already plenty of devices you can buy, and the prices are not that high. They are on lower end. There's $200 for devices. It's still expensive, but if you would like to have a great experience in VR, what I experienced personally is booths. So you go inside, put on VR headset, and now the whole ecosystem inside this booth is changing. So the temperature is changing, smell is changing, basically like 5D cinema, but in VR. Mind-blowing experience. But one booth cost $8 million, and they told they have sold like 9 to billionaires, but their goal was to scale it down to $25,000. So then these booths can be in every single cinema, and people can go experience new ways to watch movies. Hi, in this video, we'll be able to listen to the guests, which we invite to our weekly Mr. Metaverse discussion. The question now to speakers: what's your take on the smell in the metaverse, and how do you feel about it?
I own 3 virtual reality headsets, and I haven't opened a single one, and the only reason I own them is because I believe that they'll be worth a lot of money in the future. But personally, I think we have to create more of augmented reality experience to where they're blended, because people are uncomfortable with covering up their senses to do other things. Sure, there are people who will wear headphones in public and they can't hear the sirens of the traffic and stuff like that because they have their headphones on, right? So people are doing that. I'm not one of those people. When I'm outside in public, I don't wear headphones. I like to be aware of my senses. So I do think like some people will want to do this, but not everyone. I think for smells, it's going to be more of like what Andre said in the theater, or an immersive environment versus a household item. Like when you go to, like, for example, Universal Studios in Orlando, they have those theaters and you like can feel like spiders crawling on your feet. And some of the theaters, when you're watching the movie, you can feel heat when you're going into the Terminator movie. They have different special effects that do help out, that affect your senses, but you're not putting anything on your body. It's all happens naturally in the room through the immersive technology, but you're not personally going out of your way to put something on your body that will trick your senses. People want their senses to be tricked, but they don't want to trick themselves. They want other people to do it for them.
Yeah, regarding smell, I don't really have a very strong opinion on this. I think over time, like, more of the sensory experiences that we have, they're going to be used, but I think we're very far away from that. So what Tim said, I think will be the first ways that we experience things like smell and touch and feel. Like that'll be more like the theme kind of parks. I don't know when it's going to happen in our house. I can't really share what I think about this, to be honest. I haven't really thought this through. Curious to hear what the other...
All right, that's lots for you to think about, because 4 or 5 years from now, that's something to decide, especially as a parents as well, have to think about the kids or the future kids of ourselves, so how they will experience it. And kids love VR, and by enhancing their experience of VR, they will love it even more. But is it right or wrong? That's for the parent to decide. Right, moving to the Constantine. What's your take on in VR and in AR?
I think it's a matter of perspective. How do you see the whole thing? We have to ask ourselves why we build the metaverse, why we build this VR world. If we want to replicate what we have in physical world, to replicate it in the virtual world, to feel better or safe, then yes, smell maybe is needed. But my perspective is that I don't want to replicate what I have in physical, because I already have it. You can do it, and maybe I can play with that. But the most important for me is that the metaverse should be an environment that is beyond of what we have. I believe more to technologies that can bring us impossible things than just to spend my time in order to replicate what I already have.
I am with Costantino. Costa said it pretty well. Me personally, I couldn't care less about the smelling part in a metaverse, because I'm actually quite happy that it will happen, because we will see a lot of people staying home wearing all these goggles and stuff, and I can go out, have a bit more peace and silence while I enjoy the lake, the sea, the trees, the nature, the wind. I'm more of a fan of having all the feelings in a much realer way. Of course, I know in the digital industry at some point it will feel exactly or almost the same as if you're outside, but this is something that I might try it in a theme park or in a cinema or in a virtual tech experience park. I know one industry where you integrate stuff like that, where you can like literally activate all your senses. It's really interesting where we're at the moment and the future that's coming, because we saw a lot of movies, right? We're like, oh, it's crazy how they made it, but it's not that far away. All these sci-fi and futuristic movies were very close to that timeline of absolutely crazy cyborgs and whatever. I fully believe in that. Regarding senses, nah, that's not my share.
The industry we shall not say, right?
Everyone listening knows that there's already been devices.
Yeah, 100%. Got the point there. All right, so that's an interesting perspective. I personally believe that smells will be big in the metaverse, specifically in VR, because after my experience, especially like in like theme parks, 100%, I agree with that, because it's like next level 5G from what I experienced personally. And I think it's hard to imagine that without experiencing it. But in short, how I can describe it, just I put on a headset and they just travel me through all the earth. And because I was blessed to travel a lot, I remember the smells. And I was literally smelling the jungle. I was literally smelling desert. I was literally smelling the ocean. And it was so freaky, because I'm in the center of Amsterdam, and it's just so weird because there's nothing smells like that. The desert or jungle is thousands of miles away, but I smell it at the moment. It was really interesting how they did it, and it was changing like every 5-10 seconds. So it was so seamlessly. And then I spoke with a couple dozens people who was also experienced that about how they experience it. And I say statistically, it was something like 70% of people felt some of the smells. The technology is not perfect yet, so it still needs a lot of work to be done. And I have really strong smells, so that's why maybe for me it was much easier to differentiate between different changes in smell in the air. And for most people, they didn't notice. But 30 people loved it, and we chatted for like 2 hours with a couple of them about how mind-blowing that was. And it will be massive in like gaming and in entertainment experiences 100%. Maybe even in stores, you can combine it with AR. If you walk in a headset, you can see the smell is coming outside the window or the door, like luring you inside, like maybe the restaurant, something like that, and you're like coming closer, and then the smells are being released, or maybe it's not in your headset, but maybe an outside, and then you can smell it, and it's a lot of potential interesting applications.
I have something to add here. I think it's worth mentioning, looking at sort of the metaverse and the immersive experiences from a broader point of view, it's like, how can we get people to adopt these kind of technological evolutions on mass scale, not just the geeks and the gamers, but when is it going to be grandma? I think that's the big question.
Thank you to watching to the end. If you like more exclusive content, or you'd like to learn through the text, consider subscribing to our newsletter. Links in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and probably you might like this video.